Right, so hello everyone, this is the 22nd live stream, I think, of the recorded series. I am only 3 minutes late, sorry, 4 minutes late, which is better than normal, so we're getting there. We're nearly on time, which is good. Today, I kind of just wanted to pick up where we left off yesterday. But also, just a quick update, I have updated the I've updated our Jira board significantly, so I just wanted to run through that quickly and also kind of go through what has been improved since yesterday. Since obviously we're new to Jira and it's something that we're kind of only just getting used to and I'm building a workflow for before handing it off to Matthews. So I don't know if this is the best way to do it or if this is best practice or whatever, but it works for us. But what I've done is I've made this card with all of our new tags on it. So I showed you off 2 example tags yesterday, but I wasn't quite happy with them. And also I wanted to kind of flesh out our categories that we had for various things. So basically some of the categories I've got, for example, on here are I've got these importance categories. So these are things that basically categorize whether or not it's essential to the project and what element of, like, how essential it is. So I'll open this up and I'll run through some of the examples. I have yet to fill this in, but I will do that off stream at some point, so I'm not wasting time. And I'll explain as I go anyway. So these importance ones, we have bonus. So these are like extra features that maybe have been suggested or that we want that aren't really essential, that we don't have to do. They'll likely get filtered to the kind of bottom of our priorities list unless somebody repeatedly requests them. So they're the kinds of things that we will more than likely avoid if we can, just for time reasons. There's importance. So QOL means quality of life and dev means developer. So this could be for things like developer tools. And in fact, we're actually working on a dev quality of life improvement today, which is variable centralization. I'll explain more what I mean by that later, but basically it's just collecting all of our settings variables into one place, so that they're easily editable and testing it and make sure that that all still works. We have importance fluff. So bonus is like the kind of nicer extra features that we have that we kind of want in. And fluff is like the stuff that's like, it really doesn't have much of a point. It's just a thing that we could add, a thing that we could do. This could be based on maybe a community member wants a specific type of, I don't know, a specific type of animal or a specific type of behavior, but it's like, it's not really, it doesn't really add a lot. It's just there. It's just content at the end of the day. We have MVP, which doesn't mean most valuable player. It means minimum viable product, which in the business world is essentially if you have a collection of features that meet your MVP, that is the minimum amount of things that have to go into the game to get it to a point where it is usable. Doesn't necessarily mean it looks nice, doesn't necessarily mean it behaves particularly well or that it's easy to use. It just means it is functional, we can ship it, it does all of the things that we set out to do in our original specification. So anything listed as MVP will have to be built before we do release. So that'll be things like AI, prop interactivity, some form of inventory system, that kind of thing. So it covers a lot of bases, but it's all of the things that must happen, that we have to work on. Anything with this label will be topmost priority, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we'll work on them first. It just means that above all else, they must be done. So then we have polish. So these are features that aren't necessarily interactivity features, because we also have importance quality of life just on its own, not developer quality of life. So the difference between these two are they're essentially the same, but the quality of life ones means it's a feature that might improve the usability of the engine or something along those lines, and the polish is something that maybe is visually interesting or offers some degree of just, maybe it tightens up the controls a little bit or something to that effect. So those are the kind of importance tags. Then we have source. So this is where the suggestion has come from. So it's fairly self-explanatory. We've just got developer and community. So if it's a developer feature, we've come up with the idea, we want to implement it. If it's community, obviously you guys have. And visibility. So I kind of went into a bit of detail with this last time, but the way I define it now is, while we won't necessarily hide these from the public in terms of, obviously I'll be doing these live streams, so you'll be able to see the board from time to time. So they will be things that can be seen, like they're not things we're strictly hiding. But the private tag will be used when we're doing things like our roadmap breakdown. So the roadmap will be something that we'll embed on our website, potentially down the road, and also show to people whenever we're doing any form of investment or crowdfunding rounds. So public and private will be used to control what is shown on those. And it's more just a thing that helps us refine down our roadmap to things that we think are essential to show off. It's not necessarily saying we cannot show this to people. It's just saying we don't want to visually for the purpose of our roadmap. So that's all that means. So all of these things are our new tags. They just help us organize our work. They help us prioritize more than anything. I'm also going to define clear rules for the priority features as part of this container at some point. So I'm going to maybe have an additional container that contains rule sets for all of the different things that we have, just so that we have clear guidelines on what constitutes maybe high priority, low priority, that kind of thing. As well as maybe a guide on estimating time frames, and also how to break down tasks appropriately and what level of granularity is appropriate and that kind of thing. I don't know if I showed this off before, but we also have the epics tags as well. So these are put in automatically. You can filter by them, so you can see that the way I've interpreted that is we have big packages of our different systems, and we also have all of the different efforts that we're making as well. So website is on here, but it's not something that we're considering essential at this stage. But we will look more into that in the future. I have added quite a few additional things so far, most of which are website and marketing and finance cards, which so far have mainly been preparation for Insomnia. So all of that stuff is stuff that we're wanting to do before going to Insomnia Games Festival in the UK, in Birmingham. So we'll be looking at doing that at some point. Just bear with me 1 second. Just messaging somebody quickly. So yeah, a lot of those have been brought in from what we're calling our epics roadmap. So this document we made, which I wrote about in the last update. This video will be, this particular live stream I think will be going up on the YouTube channel the week after it's actually been recorded. So if you're watching this, it'll be last week's update blog. But essentially we wrote this in preparation for our 6-month business presentation, which I went into quite a bit of detail about in that post. And And what I've been doing is, while I've not been necessarily ticking these off because they're not done, I've been crossing them out as I convert them over to Jira. The goal is to have everything, and I mean literally everything, in Jira eventually. The only thing that I'm struggling with at the moment is we can't use something called their Confluence boards because they're paid for. But we will look at securing funding that can be used for things like Confluence. So that's another thing on our marketing and financing roadmap. I need to do an expense report first before we ask for additional funding, and then we basically need to have a meeting with it's essentially our business advisor, who controls funding to this pot of money that everyone, as part of the scheme that we're on, has access to. But you only have access to a set amount, so it's like, I think it's anywhere from 500 to £1,000, I think, and we're going to be trying to apply for all of that so that we can use it to really kind of promote ourselves when we go to like Insomnia and stuff like that. You can see as well there's Insomnia like arrangements that need to be made, so we need to work out how we're travelling there, where we're staying for one. Also, we have yet to actually buy tickets for that, because we've been wanting to hold off until we have the financing, so we need to do the financing as soon as possible because Insomnia is in like 35 days, I think it is. So we're really looking at basically getting all of this done as soon as possible, which is why I've converted it over to Jira so that we can track deadlines. Really helps us prioritise our work. So it's kind of been an essential component that we've been missing up to this point, is this real kind of high-level overview of everything that we're doing, not just the development side. And eventually, once I've had a bit more time with this evening, because I did the development update a day early, what I can do this evening is focus on getting the uploads done for this week. So the videos are recorded from the live streams, they're edited now as well. For this week's schedule, so I'll be working on uploading and scheduling those for the remainder of the week. The dev blog has gone up already, so I'm pretty much free to really hammer out some of these and move them over to the approved and prepared stage. So most of these need moving over to approved. I just need to go through them one by one and actually work out what things are kind of essential at this stage and what things aren't. So a good example of that is physics. Physics is something we think we'll need, but we're not sure what form that'll take yet, so I haven't quite moved it over to the approved stage just because the specification for that needs finalising first. And then once we have more of a clear idea, I'll go through it, write out a clear spec in the form of subtasks, and then prioritise it, do a time breakdown, that kind of thing, and then I will really look at working through all of those. You okay? No, thank you.
Out of date, so I made loads.
Oh, okay, if there's spare ones, then you really
Not
didn't.
all of them.
I don't have a plate though.
Just eat it.
Just eat it. Hang on, I need some paper or something.
Just eat.
I'll just dump it there. Thank you.
Want a cup of?
Yes, please. See why? Get food and drink delivered to me on stream. That's nice. Right, yeah, so basically what I was saying was I just basically need to work through them one by one, and then slowly push them across. That's the whole idea. So Kanban as a methodology is supposed to work on a pull system, but because there are certain things that need prioritizing sooner rather than later that have kind of ended up being on a bit of a back burner because of all of the 6-month presentation and Jira stuff that we've been doing, I will push those ahead rather than pull them through pipeline, which isn't really what you're supposed to do, but we kind of have a need for it currently. So the roadmap as well, once everything from our document is in, we need to decide how we're going to lay this out, and also if things will need breaking down further as well, because I feel like currently we're going to be working on all of these systems near enough simultaneously, Well, at least when it comes to marketing, networking, finance, project management, that kind of thing. So certain things are kind of going to be continuous, and I'm going to see if I can break those down into chunks, especially like marketing, for example, because there's so much going on in the marketing field that it doesn't really make sense to have it all happening simultaneously. There might be ways that we can optimize that and break it down further. Right, so now that I've shown you that, and I've updated you on that, and I've got food as well, I will go onto here, see what we have to do today. The thing that immediately jumps out to me is I set a deadline of today for variable cleanup. So this is what I was talking about earlier. This is what we will be working on first. So this actually touches almost all aspects of the development process. I'll have to update that. Before I do, however, I know it's a bit early in the stream for me to be doing this, but I will take a quick toilet break, and then when I come back I will be ready to work on this properly, so just bear with me 1 second. Right, I am back. So one thing I've noticed I keep on forgetting to do actually is putting the music on, so I will do that now. I suppose it's alright that I've been leaving that off while I've been talking, to be fair. So that's fine. And I'll put it on while I'm doing actual development work, so hopefully it'll be a bit more engaging for you guys. This will kind of be a lengthy process, to be quite honest, because I need to identify not only how to include this header file, but also how to everything in terms of making it and everything. So I believe you can make you can make an empty C++ class, but I don't actually want to make the source file, I just want the header, which I don't believe I can do. Unless I guess I just make a blank one, like just make it manually. Let me just double check, see if there's a way to do it. You okay? Thank you.
You made any friends?
Not today. I don't know if Jacob's on the stream. He might be. Thank you for tea.
Want anything?
No thank you. I've got loads of stuff here. Anyway. Bye. Right, so looking through this, I'm just trying to see if there's a way to make headers only and then hook them into the engine. So just bear with me 1 second. Right, so we've got, this is saying to do it through, saying to just do it through Visual Studio. Yeah, this guy doesn't ask for much. In this bloody comment thread, someone's basically explained exactly what to do, and he's asking for a video tutorial, as if anyone would just knock one of those together. In fact, I've just remembered, let me rename the stream because I don't want people to come on thinking I'm still doing entity placement. My workflow for this, by the way, will get better over time. It's just currently I'm somewhat new to this new workflow, and I've got a lot of stuff going on at once, like with the new Jira system and everything. So when I've got a bit more time to spend more of my effort kind of making the stream better, I won't forget to do things like put the music on or change the title. But we'll get there. We'll get there. I'm just going to read through this again while I eat. I'll mute the mic so you can't hear me chomping. Okay, so I'm done with my crumpets, right? So let me open up the file through the, where is it? Through the Explorer, through File Explorer. It should show up here, but for some reason it isn't. So let's drag this over to one side briefly. I don't know where this has been made, but we should find it in the intermediate, I believe. I wish it told me where it was. Project files. Sorry, what? Oh, in here. Sorry, project files. Settings, so we need to copy this. Well, cut it because we don't want it being saved there. Then we want to jump back to that folder location we're in before where it has all of our other files in it. Okay. Paste that in there. I believe this is what it's wanting us to do. And then we need to, I believe it said right click on here and generate something or other. Generate Visual Studio project files. Here we go. Try not to dribble coffee down myself. There we go. So that apparently should have built what we're after. So if I reload it, save that. I'm hoping the settings file will now be included. I believe it's now within the scope of where source control scans. Want that red dot to go, basically. Still don't know why that isn't working properly, but you know what? Let's remove that and let's re-add it. We want to be in the immediate folder. We want to be within whatever that thing was that we were just in. Here we go. That is pending add, so I believe that is visible now. So if we can open it. Try that. This should show up in here, I believe, as well. But what I'm going to do is just save that and reopen it. See if it does show up. If not, I will add it through the window itself. So that'll work. Basically, I'm just trying to do as many things as I can to ensure that this file is linked properly. It might not necessarily need to be, but hopefully this fixes things. No, it's not there. Right, so let's just go into folder view again. We'll drag in that there. Hoping it shows up. If it doesn't, it's not the end of the world. Right, hopefully we can use this anyway, it doesn't matter. Right, so let's actually give this a go. I don't know if this will work, but so something I need to do is a quick test. Let's take these here. These defines, stick them in the settings file. There we go. And then do an include instead. Settings.h, so at least it's being detected within there. And this, in theory, should still work. don't know what it's highlighting there. I believe these are the publicly available things. This shouldn't throw any errors now because we have the include on there. So I think that's actually working, to be honest, which is nice. So we can also do the same thing for all the other files as well. So prop controller, for instance, we've got max object width already, so if we get rid of that, replace it with include h, there we go. Cut that out. Now this will begin to show errors if it's updating properly. Not apparent. Oh wait, in here it will show errors when it actually updates. Should do at least. Or have I not used it in here? Maybe I haven't. Should have done. Max props here. That should show up as a code highlight error, but it isn't at the moment. So I think it's just a bit behind, but we'll just add this in. I'll wait until it shows me errors, because then I at least know that something's happening. Right now I have no idea if it's even working. Oh well, let's carry on. So we've got all of these got all of these. I'll reorder these at some point as well, just into an order that kind of makes sense. I'll also use the including namespace std in there, I think, as well. Yeah, just because I don't think I've run into a scenario yet where I haven't, where that's been an issue. I have been told that you shouldn't do that. Especially if you're using things like custom standard template libraries, or sorry, standard libraries, that kind of thing, where there's a lot of things that have been rewritten from base C++. So I know that EA, for example, has their own games-oriented standard library, and you kind of shouldn't use the namespace std thing because it causes a lot of conflicts with theirs. And it can become confusing if you're not explicitly declaring what scope you're using. So I've been advised against it, but for my purposes, and since this is my project, I really don't have any issues of putting it there currently. I'm also going to see if there are any other things I can put in there, because to me it seems to make sense that I clean a lot of these up. So for example, component/instance static mesh component.h. I think that's something that I use pretty much universally, but I will leave that there for now. Just so core minimal as well. I've just realised the bass from downstairs can be picked up. I might go ask Jacob to turn the music down again. Alright, bear with me 1 second, I'll just go tell him to quieten down again.
To burn, no ordinary AI in this ball. Every culture and philosophy I've read up on them all. I've been living in your shadow for 99999, keeping tabs on every machination and production line. So don't call me a moron, I'm super astute. There is no conundrum that my core cannot confuse. No, don't call me a moron, you fostered balloon. My IQ's the infinite space from here to the moon. My IQ's the infinite space from here to the moon. My IQ's the infinite space from here to the moon. I have studied Machiavelli, Aristotle, Gabe and Plato, yet you still equate my intellect to that of a potato. This place would fall apart without my ever watchful eye. They might tell you I'm a half-wit, it's a great big bloody lie. So don't call me a moron, I'm super astute. There is no conundrum that my core cannot compute. No, don't call me a moron, you fostered balloon. My IQ's the infinite space from here to the moon. My IQ's the infinite space from here to the moon. My IQ's the infinite space from here to the moon. My IQ's the infinite space from here to the moon. I know my way around here, every catwalk, every cave, and since you're dead I've quite appreciated not being your
Okay, I'm back, so I've just need to tell Jacob to turn the music down. The thing that I'm worried about is not actually that there's background noise, it's the fact that I could get copyright striked on the YouTube channel. Right, bear with me 1 second. Skip this song. I don't like that song, I don't know why it keeps on getting suggested. So, moving forward, the seems all to be working fine. I think this is all still working. I don't see any issues with that. The next thing to do is convert the terrain controller over. I believe I've got world width and voxel width already in the settings menu. Yeah, that's all in there. So I can actually just get rid of these and replace them with the hash include. Not include, include. There we go. Make stupid spelling mistakes all the time. Okay, here's another one as well actually. Amount of panel variance. So that I can add in. Let me just reorder these slightly. So prop stuff I will put together, and I'll also put it at the bottom as well, since it's the, I mean I won't say it's the least important part, but it's, I'd say the voxel system definitely comes first. Max props as well needs to go down there somewhere. Okay, so we've replaced all of this. It does not seem to be showing any errors so far. This also seems to be fine, apparently. Now I need to start the process of analysing the code and trying to find hard-coded numbers, seeing if there's anything that I can actually replace over time. So I'm hoping to centralise pretty much everything at the moment, so that there is some degree of flexibility in a single location, and then as I kind of move on, through the code and make things a lot more maintainable in the future. I do wish that this live stream today was a bit more like visually interesting. I know that I'm probably not going to have any viewers simply because it's tedious work that I'm doing at the moment. It's not something particularly interesting. Well, that being said, I don't want to not record stuff like this because the whole point in this series is to expose what it's like to be a game developer, and unfortunately you have to do boring stuff from time to time. That's just how it is, which is why I focus so much on Jira recently, just to show that a lot of project management is starting to go into this now. And while it may not be the most fascinating thing in the world, it does provide a lot of context to the work that we're doing, and I think it's helpful to show it. Okay, so I'm going to go through each of these files now and analyse them for things that can be I'm thinking maybe I could change this to voxel sides or something like that. I mean, it may be a little unnecessary, but I just need to decide what stuff is necessary and what isn't. So yeah, that's fine. That's just the voxel sides. That doesn't need changing. Is there anything on here that could be done differently? Could potentially eventually convert all of this over to a dynamic system so that Josh can have materials at will. I won't do that just yet because I'm considering that kind of a separate undertaking that will involve doing all of the models, and also I don't want to break stuff just yet. And we'll also investigate what extent we want to take that to, because we may want to enable mod support, and to do that it would mean exposing the dynamic model system to users, not just to the engine, but we're not sure yet if that's even feasible. We don't know if we could dynamically add meshes in without doing it through the editor first. There may be a way to, at runtime, compile static meshes, but I'll have to see if there's a library for that. If not, it won't be feasible to do modding support on the model front, unfortunately, as much as we wish there was. And we may just have to do it manually and through community suggestions, which would mean there isn't that kind of automation on the community side, but it also means that we get to have more control over the creative process. So it might actually be more beneficial for us to do it that way. So we haven't actually decided yet. I've also considered giving every single brush its own ID, so that we can call it with an automated preset from the main menu, so that, I mean, we don't even necessarily need to give it an ID really, but like basically the end goal is to have it so that when we spawn in a new world, you can potentially choose from a set of drop downs that say, I want my new world to have this base setting on it. So it might be just to have a flat plane, it might be to, I don't know, do whatever. But I want to take out this for now because I want the world to just be a flat plane. So I'll leave that in there as is, having removed that. This is something that I want to look at doing. So every tick, I want to control how many voxels are processed per frame. And this may be something that I eventually control based on how much time has passed. So the tick function can almost be used to control frame rate dependent things. So if your frame rate's slow, i.e. it's taken a long time to do something, we might be able to control the speed of the engine based on that. In fact, let's look at doing that. So the delta times the amount of time in seconds. We want 60 frames per second. I can't remember what the bloody number is for that, but let's do 1 divided by 60. I don't know if it'll tell me directly in here. I have a feeling it's something to do with that. So you've got delta time. So this should give me 60, so whatever delta time times 60 is. And then we can control it with a number like 100, I think is how that works. So what this would do is we take delta time in, let's say it is this number just for argument's sake. We times it by we could just divide it by this target number instead. We don't need to times it by 1, it gives the same result. So delta time divided by that. So let me just double check that that works how I expect it to. So I would have thought that 0.016 divided by 0.016 would give me roughly 60. Right, it gives me 1. Right, yeah, that's correct. So basically, as delta time increases, we want this to decrease. We want the overall number to decrease. So maybe we swap these around actually. So the bigger delta time is, and we do that. And then in here we can have a define that says deferred loading speed, start off as 100. So we want to use this, and we'll place this in the what was I just in? Terrain controller. Here we go. Let me test this. So in theory, if my frame rate's great, voxels should be processed faster. If it's not so great, they'll be processed slower, and it will be a dynamic system. So. Although I don't want it to do that thing where one frame it slows down loads and then the next frame it speeds up loads. It'll have to kind of be smooth, and I don't know if it'll do that, because what it might do is it might try and process loads of them because delta time is like something really good. But then because it processed loads of them on the last frame, because the frame before performance was really good, then performance will be really bad on the next one, and so it'll only spawn in a couple, and then the next one will be like, oh shit, we processed this really quick, so we're only doing a couple of them, so let's spawn in loads this frame. So this might take some time, so I have to reopen the editor. Bear with me. And the editor has it crashed? Done something. What it's done. Oh, there we go. So yeah, I'm actually not entirely sure that this code will be the most stable thing in the world, so I think the frame rate will fluctuate massively. I don't think it'll work how I'm expecting it to, so what I might do instead is, if the frame rate drops, I might have this number decrement and increment, rather than it be a product of the previous frame, so that it's not constantly fluctuating up and down. Okay, so let's test this with a large ellipsoid, because that's normally the best thing to test it with. Okay, so the frame rate seems fairly stable, to be fair, but still it's kind of chugging slightly. But at least it's somewhat consistent. That was my main concern, that it wouldn't be consistent, but it seems to be working just fine. There's a bit of stuttering though. Because the frame rate's slower as well, it's choosing to do this slower, I think. Which is fine. But I want to get the frame rate to the point where it's actually smooth. But I also don't want it to be so slow that it's like not worth having this in there. But what I'll do is I'll just edit the setting for this quickly, change that to 50. See if it makes any significant difference. Okay, so let's see how this performs now. So let's go get this out again. Let's paint a bunch of shit on the screen. So the performance of this is a little better, but it's definitely slower at loading in voxels now. To the point where, again, I don't know if it's worth even really changing this number that much, because I would think anyway that I'd rather the voxels kind of be over and done with, like get spawned into the scene, and have to wait on them. So, Because at the moment it's just laggy and it's slow. I don't want either of those. I want it to be fast on both fronts. There is that performance upgrade which I need to look at doing soon. That will improve things massively, and I mean literally massively. I think that would be the single most important optimization feature that I do. Genuinely. So we shall see. Let me see what it's like if I increase that speed. So let's increase it to 300 because that's triple the original value. That's quite a significant difference. That was really fast for the plane, but that's not the one I'm worried about. Oh, wrong one. Again, not quite what I wanted. So yeah, this chugs the frame rate to a point where I'm not quite comfortable with it. Almost doesn't seem to make much of a significant improvement either. Although you can definitely tell that the lag is due to the spawning in part of the code, I think. Especially since when I did this before, it wasn't that bad until I added in collisions, and then it introduced a lot of lag issues when spawning in large amounts of voxel. So yeah, I'll revert that back. 100 seemed to be like a nice number, but at least we've got this in now. This feature is quite important for us, I think, when it comes to quality of life improvements down the road, so it's good that this number's in. So if I go to here, we're going to see if we can find any more variables to edit, to kind of bring it under this umbrella of performance improvements. This might be helpful to get rid of actually. This is the out of view. It's kind of like the garbage removal area in a way. I believe that's 20,000 units, but we could put it even further out. There's no harm in doing it. I know I've done this just a second ago, but I'm just going to take another toilet break quickly. I had loads of coffee and tea this morning. Right, there we go, I'm back, so that was only a quick break. So, right, what we were doing before is basically we want to implement this garbage disposal distance. So let me just double check that. So that's 200,000, which I believe is 2,000 voxel spaces. Well, it equates to that much anyway. We're entering controller. So yeah, this is only 20,000. So let's put this in here. That number just means how far are we willing to put away blocks that are no longer being used, so that we don't have to recalculate the, because we're using something called instant static meshes, which kind of exist within a tree-like structure in the Unreal Engine. But to remove something from that tree means recomputing the entire tree for some reason. I don't know why the engine does it that way or if it's a technical requirement, but it does. So when changing large amount of voxels, we don't want to have to recompute that tree every time. So the solution for me, at least, that I've been suggested by one of my lecturers was to, it's kind of a stupid solution, but to essentially just move the thing outside of the viewing range. So that's what we're doing here. What I will then do on top of that is at some point I will implement a feature that does garbage cleanup. So maybe when the amount of things within the pool of objects gets to a certain amount, it'll kind of pause the game for a second and say, look, we're just doing some garbage cleanup. You know, bear with us. It's kind of like a small loading screen. It's not ideal, but if we need to do it, we need to do it. And if it turns out there's a significant memory leak in that respect after being in the editor for a certain amount of time, then it will be something that I look into doing. So yeah, so let's go through. So we've also got these variables. These don't need changing. Again, I don't think there's anything in here that needs kind of updating to this new system. These variables maybe, but that would just be naming them at that point. It's not really essential. There's nothing here. Just noticed, I'm not sure why I've commented this out. I'll put that back in. I think it's because the initial spawning thing has slopes on it. Something like that. Yeah, I believe that's because I didn't want the smoothing algorithm to be applied on the base thing, but then I can just turn smoothing on and off. I don't know why that was commented out. So there's nothing here that really jumps out at me as being something that needs to be converted over. No particular hard-coded values or anything like that. I don't think there's anything in the smoothing algorithm that needs it. To be honest, I think I was quite disciplined in this area. I don't think there's anything really that needs cleaning up in there. Right, so we can ignore that now. So let's move on to the prop system. So this should be, I believe it's prop model amount. This should be. Don't know if I actually use prop model amount anywhere. Yeah, so I made this variable and I don't know if I've actually used it. Yeah, I don't think so. I'm going to stick this in there as well. I think in the header actually I used this. Yeah, I do. So it is being used somewhere, just not in the place that it probably should be. Yeah, at least that's updated now. I don't believe there are any other variables in here that really need updating because I have been editing this relatively recently. I feel like I'd remember. Even in here, I've converted this over to my max object width and height. Good job that I'm doing this now though, rather than later, before this gets too unwieldy and massive. Because what could end up happening is if I don't do this now, obviously I'll leave it for however long, build so many things, and then this process would take so much more longer, rather than just allowing me to do it as I go along. This file will definitely have some stuff in it, I'm almost certain. Okay, this is a setting that can be updated. Do I have a limit in here? I don't believe so. I need to evaluate as well what things can be had as integers and what things can't be. I don't know if I can define ints straight in here. I might be able to. Can't remember if that's how C++ works. I can't remember if you can define things without a class or anything like that. I'm pretty sure you can. Let's just have a look. So I want things like starting placement distance. And then what I can do is expose these to the editor later on. So let's copy this. I know it's a bit of a lengthy variable, but let's place this in here instead. That should work. So since we've just got it as an include, we can just slap that straight in there. I can also, I guess, do all of the starting brush diameters and brush limits and that kind of thing as well. Now I'll leave as 0 because they should be in the default position. Current block slot I think starts off at 1 because 0 is air. And also we're going from 1 to 9 rather than 0 to 9. Current brush should always stay on 1, current prop should always stay on 1 initially, dominant axis always stay on 0. So we'll do starting brush diameter X, I suppose, and starting brush diameter YZ as settings. And I'll put editor in here just to clarify what these settings are for. I will start them off at 5 actually. I think 5 is like a nice small... Or should I do 10? I think, yeah, let's go with 10, why not? Stops me having to increment everything every time I start the editor as well, which is what I've been doing up to this point, but if I actually save this as a setting, it makes my life easier down the road. So what I'll do shortly is I'll show off these features that I'm doing now. Well, I'll just test everything quickly, make sure it still works. But I'll show off the editor again in a second. So we've got those starting settings, that's great. Going down, I don't think there's any other hard-coded values, but we need to move into the actual DPP quickly. So immediately I can see that some of these things can paste in. So this is the starting, I believe, position and starting F rotator. So these things can be copied straight into the settings file. So I can do that. If it'll allow me to do that, I think I might need some includes in here. Let me just double check which ones those will be. Not sure if it's math or if it's core minimal. Won't be any of these. Let's try the math one. Oh no, it has allowed it, it just took a while to catch up. Okay, that's fine. Again with the F rotator, let's copy that. I have not done that correctly at all. There we go. And then rotation. There we go. And then what I can do is obviously just set these as replacements in here. So to briefly explain again to anyone that hasn't seen up to this point, what we're doing is we're just centralising all of our kind of starting values and that kind of thing so that they can be easily edited by the designer down the road, Joshua Matthews, and then be updated as of when we deem them necessary. So things like the camera speed, for instance, that's something that we'll need in there. So this clamp vector will just replace each of these numbers with like camera velocity or something like that. So what data type was that? So that's an F vector. I'll just copy that quickly. F vector. Max velocity, and then we'll do. Oh, in fact, it'll be an int, won't it? It won't be a thingy. There we go. We'll just set that to 1000. Copy this, and it's quite a few copies in here. There we go. Okay. There's also this, which is the deceleration value. So I believe the greater this is, the slower it becomes. So we'll have another int in here, which is editor camera deceleration. That's not how you spell that, is it? I don't think. Let me just type this into Google quick. Deceleration. I think that's how I've spelt it there, yeah. Right, so let's have a look. Just double checking there's nothing I need to convert over in the H file. I'm just keeping an eye out again for variables. So this actually should be converted over to, I think, this probably should be converted over something. So this is the placement length increment, basically. So this is whenever you increment the mouse wheel up or down to change the length from the camera that you're placing voxels at, this value here should be updated. So I'll add an integer in here as well. Camera distance increment, let's place that there. That's another thing out the way. This should maybe be updated, but I'm not entirely sure. Oh no, so the impact normal is actually okay, that's fine. That's just checking the checking whether or not it's a slope. This, however, needs to change. So this needs to be a product of Let me see. So this needs to be a product of the voxel width and voxel depth. It needs to be as a result of that rather than just a hard-coded value in case the block sizes change at any point. So what we'll do is I think this, to be honest, is the file where all of the most significant changes will take place, since there's so many numbers in here. Mostly near the top, I think, but yeah, we'll convert that over. So we want that to be so this is a bit of a confusing variable to explain, but this essentially, when you're looking at a ramp, how sensitive the voxel placement position is to you looking down slightly, so whether or not you can place a prop kind of inside the ramp versus on top of it when surface placement mode is active. So it's quite useful for when placing things like trees where you want it slightly submerged in the hill, but you may also want the behaviour of being able to place it on top. So this will be equal to the voxel width. We'll also have an x and y for this, so this will be copied. Divided by, or rather times I should say, times 0.3. So that's 100 times 0.3, so that works out at 30. So we'll copy this. Want to know why that's highlighting? Okay, no, it isn't anymore, never mind. Okay, so that should be fine. So editor surface displacement ramp, whatever the hell I called that variable. Oh, this is on the z-axis actually. In that case, then it will be one. It will be one value, and we'll be using voxel depth. Sorry, no, voxel height, and it won't be times 0.3. It will be times 0.6 because that's actually 50 on that axis, so it's half of that. So that's fine. So if we get rid of the x on there and replace it with a z. So it's a nice editable setting on there that we can change. Draw debug box, again this needs to be a product of the, well, it's essentially half of these dimensions, so let's copy these in here. So I'm actually making quite a lot of sweeping changes in this code, so once I've done with this I will have to massively just test this, make sure there's nothing kind of off about what I'm doing currently. But so far I think it's a fairly simple process. Just need to be careful not to change the wrong settings or put in the wrong amounts, especially when it comes to like voxel width and depth and stuff, because if I accidentally copy and paste the wrong one and we say decide to change the width or the depth relative to the width, or basically vice versa, then we could cause issues where they're not scaling at the same rate, which could lead to big problems further down the road. So let's see if there's any more hard-coded values in here. So yes, so there's these ones. Again, we need to copy this again, so put that in there, that in there, and this should just be divided by 2, I think. So just copy that quickly, stick that in there, same again, but this time we're converting this over to depth. And this to depth as well. If anyone has any questions, by the way, about what I'm doing, or they want to see something in action, just let me know and I'll be more than happy to do that for you guys. Just needs to be height, and height again. That's fine. Here again is something that needs to be added in. I'll just copy this time, speed things up a little bit. There we go. There's this value in here, not entirely sure what this one does actually. So this is draw debug sphere. That is... that's a difficult one because it depends on what value we want to change. I'm going to say we take the height for that, since the height is exactly 50, and then at least the height is the only thing, because the width and the depth could change relative to each other, and that would look kind of weird if we only chose one of those. Say let's say we made one dimension really skinny, it would look kind of weird to choose that one over the other, but the height is something that's always kind of consistent for the player, makes them for the radius of the debug circle there. I don't see any additional variables up there that need changing. Here's another space where we need to... Right, so this looks like a camera speed thing, so we're going to need another setting. So well, it's acceleration actually. So we will copy this in. And this one's camera sensitivity. So this is one of those that, again, we kind of need a variable for, but it'll be a separate one this time, so we don't want to link the camera acceleration to the camera rotation sensitivity. Right, what's this one? Increase placement distance. So this, I believe, is the hard-coded limit that I have in there at the moment for placement distance, so that's something that I'm going to change. So that's 20, so that might be something that Josh wants to change at some point, where he wants to allow you to essentially place something closer or further away. Again, we have minimum place distance as well. We might not want the player to be able to place something directly in the camera, which is how it's currently set up. I will just copy this whole thing. And then copy this. I do need to update that number, just can't forget. So yeah, let's set this to 0. There we go. What else is there? There's increased diameter X and Y, so this is the maximum brush dimensions that we have. So this does need to be 0, so I'm not going to set a minimum for that, just because brushes should be able to occupy a single tile if the user should wish to. I don't know why they would, but because in theory you just choose the singular voxel placement, but we'll leave that as is. We will, however, want a... I don't know if I should do it in separate directions. I think I will. So we'll need an X, Y, Z scale for brushes. So edit max brush size X. I believe that was 25, and again we'll need this for each axis. However, the Z-axis is actually is half the size, so I'm going to say that's 50. We could be a bit more savvy actually and lock that to the dimensions of... No, never mind, I won't do that, it's a waste of time. We'll just set it manually in here if we really want to. So let's copy that. This for the X, this for the Y, and this for the Z. Decrease, increase dominant axis. I think I worked out there was an issue with this system last time actually. Can't remember exactly what it was. Oh, it's that you couldn't flip the axes around actually, that doesn't matter, that's fine. I will ignore that for now. Determinant placement action, this doesn't need anything updating. This might do by the looks of it, change voxels. No, that's all fine. I don't think there's any hard-coded values in here at all. In voxel again, that's fine. Delete prop, that's fine. Change slot, that's okay for now. This one needs to be changed to... Yeah. Prop model amount. So this is the hard-coded limit that we have for the amount of prop models that are in the scene currently. This should be updated to be the, I believe, the amount of brushes we have in the scene at any given time. Don't know if we've got a setting for that though. And also I don't know if that's something that's going to change, so I might just leave that for now. Although I suppose it's good practice to, you know, include that in here just so I'm covering all my bases. So brush define. The reason I'm using defines for some of these and integers for others, by the way, is because for things that are declared using arrays, the compiler needs to know prior to compiling what the size of that array is going to be. You can't use variables to declare arrays for some reason. So I have to hard code in prior to compile time the sizes of those arrays, whereas integers, because they can be changed at any given time, can't be used for that. But I do want integers to be used for other things so that they can be changed at runtime for whatever reason. So this is max, what was it? Is it brush amount or something? Currently we have only 5 of them actually, so I will put that. Shouldn't be a problem. I don't know why that's highlighting as red. I will presume that's working for now. Let's see if I can find any other values for that, because I know that, well, I'm pretty sure I've done brush work elsewhere actually. Does this have all of the... Yeah, that's fine. So that doesn't need any adjustments, I don't think. The only thing that will change, obviously, is when adding a new brush type, I'll update this case statement. I don't think that it's changed anywhere else, at least not that I've seen, and I think that's everything. So other than this max brush amount, which doesn't seem to be working even though it should. Oh, it's because of the way I've declared it, that's why. So it isn't an integer. There we go. You get so used to typing out a certain type of definition that sometimes you just do it on autopilot, but that should fix that there. So now, moment of truth, we have to do a large compile because we've edited like literally everything in the engine code. Just to see if everything's still working and nothing breaks. If everything does break, I'll be a bit upset, but we'll see. Compile failed. This isn't good. Compiler is out of heap space. That ain't good. Maybe I just need to restart it. Try again. I'm just going to look up on the side what might be the problem. It's the same for each of them, so it might be something to do with the way I'm doing my include, eventually. Let us restart this. Let's restart the entire thing, like all of the programs. See if restarting everything fixes it. Okay, let's hope, pray that the compiler works for these. No, it's doing it again. Give me a lot of warnings this time. Right, so there's a lot of link errors now. I might have declared these already by accident. Already defined in editor camera. Let's pick one of these at random and see if we can work out why it's behaving this way. Oh, in fact, I know exactly what it's doing. So for those instances where we're including, let's say we've got, let's say we're including terrain controller, for instance, or prop controller. It already has settings defined in these, so you don't want it to include those again. A bit annoying to be honest. I'm going to have to work out how to remove that dependency. I mean, just to be super annoying, I suppose I could duplicate that settings file. Right, I need to think of how to get around this. So So it's telling me to use the extern keyword, but I'm not entirely sure how those work. My housemate keeps on turning his buffer off, so I might need to get him to turn it down again. You can like hear each individual pulse of his sub on the mic, which is kind of annoying. I told him to turn it down once already today. Let's just use. Do something like this. I don't know if I think I can get rid of Pragma once actually if I do this as well. So what I'll do is not in here. I'll get rid of Pragma once. Do hash if and def, and then call it settings underscore h, and then hash define. And then under here we want to do hash and if. So yeah. So hopefully that works. Let's try again. By the way, if you're able to hear this in chat, I don't know who's watching right now, but if someone could let me know if you can hear the bass and if it's super annoying, then please tell me. Well, if it's telling me that the second definition is ignored, then surely it shouldn't be showing up as a... Ah, here we go. Here's the actual issues. Yeah, I know it's already defined. Well, there are some things we can do to try and mitigate some of these. So let's go into here. Edit to camera. Let's see what ones this includes first. So this includes the terrain controller and prop controller, so we can get rid of the settings in one of them. The prop controller includes this might still be a problem file actually, but we're not entirely sure yet. Prop controller generated H, so fine. This includes none of them, so right, so I'm hoping that fixes at least one of the problems that we were having before. Should be significantly fewer issues, but it doesn't look like it's showing up as fewer issues. So there might actually be a place already that I can actually place these functions, and I'm going to try my best to find that place. Well, that's not really very helpful, is it? What about in maybe this? Alright, so that's not particularly helpful. You can close that up again. I really do need to remove... Oh, one thing I can get rid of actually is that, because that's already declared, so we'll get rid of that. That should fix one of the issues. I'm going to go to the top of each file and see if there are any other dependencies that I can remove. Unfortunately, I can't remove both of these things at the same time, I don't think, so prop controller and terrain controller both need to exist unless I call one through the other, which might make sense. I could move some of the functions, might have a kind of element of indirect access. So for example, I could move terrain controller calls into the prop controller, or vice versa, and see if there's a way to have it only called once. Right, I've been going to the toilet a lot today, so I've had so much coffee and tea to drink, but I'm going to go one more time and then that should be it. So I'll be back in just a minute or two. Right, I am back. I'm gonna wrap up in my blanket, as it's quite cold in the house at the moment. There we go. So, right, I do need to work out how to fix this. That's not being used, I'll get rid of that. We go to this header because I want to see how this is defining things, because this isn't being defined multiple times. Why is it not letting me peek? Okay, apparently I can't access that file. I might be able to find it elsewhere, but am I including anything in here that could be the issue? I don't think so. No. Okay, the only thing I can think of is we go to here. Maybe we have controller for the terrain controller through. I don't know. If I do that, how much breaks? Really trying to find like the thing that breaks the fewest things, really. Right, it breaks one thing there, but then I bet it breaks a hell of a lot of stuff. This file. I'm doing a lot of voxel work in here. I'd still also then technically be calling both I'd be defining both anyway, so it kind of be pointless. Oh no, maybe not actually, but still, I kind of want to know why this guard isn't working properly, because it shouldn't be getting called multiple times. This is kind of stressing me out, to be honest, because it should. It shouldn't be a problem if I'm wrapping it in the if and def. It should be excluded from one file when it's compiled, which is. Sorry, I keep on opening my research tabs, open in the wrong place. Fragment 1 should, yeah. Chroma 1 should have been sufficient, and that's why I'm confused, because I thought maybe they have slightly different behaviours, but no, according to this it should be fine. Let's try recompiling everything. Nope, still yeah, second definition ignored. So then why is it throwing errors down here? Is it because they're variables, maybe? I converted them all over to defined, would that fix it? So let's open up my research. Let's put that back over there somewhere. Maybe I do have some kind of secular dependency, but I don't think so, because nothing's being declared in the settings. Yeah. Maybe in project name.h, I've got to find that file now. So let's see if putting this all in there fixes the issue. Let's try that. Try that as well. Let's recompile, see if it gives us the same issues. I'm also not entirely sure actually that these include the base game file. I don't think we do. Yeah, there's nothing, so all undeclared. This is a lot bigger. This is a lot of a much bigger source of headaches than I thought it would be, to be quite honest. I thought that having the pragma once would mean that this is only defined one time, but apparently it should be the case. I don't know why it's trying to define it multiple times. Let's see if I'm missing anything. So we have no includes in here, so there should be no circular dependencies in that sense. There's also definitely a pragma once. The issue with this one is they're actually including all three, which isn't great. Pressing me out a bit now. So this is only including the settings. Okay, one thing I want to know is why do I have these definitions up here, because they shouldn't be. Or is it the same in every file? Sorry, this isn't very interesting to watch, guys. Kind of just hit a roadblock, not really sure how to move past it at the moment. Did want to get other stuff done today as well, which is a shame, so I don't know if I'll have time on the stream. I will definitely have a crack at it later though if I get this fixed. What's the exact error? So, link to 005, I think it's the same for all of them. If you need to show the same variable across multiple files, then you need to use the extern. So, the new keyword to me. Let's try using the extern keyword, that might fix the problem, but I also want to double check that the defines are also working correctly. So it doesn't seem to have any issues, I don't think, with the defines themselves, so it must just be the variables. Let's try wrapping, well not wrapping, but adding all of these. Well, adding a keyword to all of the beginning of these, and hopefully that will fix things. I don't really know what the extern keyword does, I'll be honest. If this works though, I'll look more into it just in case it causes some strange side effects for me later on, so I'm going to do my research at some point. I'm not just going to use it blindly, so I do like to know what, you know, the code I'm writing actually does. Oh my god. I could try wrapping it in namespace. Unless actually this isn't recompiling, because it's not technically part of the project, so it might be ignoring it. Let me try... I don't know, let me try recompiling it this way. Let me rebuild the solution. This might take some time. So what I'm going to do, just quickly go into Jira and see if there's any outstanding tasks I work on quickly. This is something that I need to look at doing progress currently. Let's look at updating the live stream package. Hopefully we can get some stuff free. $0 on it, so let's see what the free version is. I mean, fair play to people. If people can make money off of these, then why not, eh? No, that's not what I want. This is starting to become a major issue and I cannot fix it. Maybe I need a I was going to say maybe I need like some kind of source file for this, but I really don't think so. Whoa. Right, I've got to the point where my brain's kind of hit a bit of a brick wall with this. I'm going to carry on working this off stream, see if I can fix it, but for now what I'm going to do is leave it there. Sorry that it's not been very interesting, and sorry that I haven't been able to fix it so far, but hopefully we'll get there eventually. Yeah, that being said, thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one.